You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan, everything on Twitter. Here to talk to you today about the latest in Auburn athletics news. Because guess what, everybody? It is week 2, and Auburn is undefeated, 1-0 on the season after taking down Baylor last weekend, 38-24. AP poll has been released. Auburn's currently sitting at number 27 outside looking in, and a couple of beat downs and some cupcakes could get it done for Auburn going forward. So what's up for Auburn this week? Ball State University. Auburn with their home opener, a game to, shout out Pat Dye. This game is going to be centered around is honoring Pat Dye. It's going to be the first time you can see him on the field next to the Yellowwood part. Not the first time you'll see Pat Dye Field on the field. First time you'll see Pat Dye Field sponsored by Yellowwood on the field. And, of course, a lot of other great things you're going to see in the stadium this week. And, sadly, I would not be in attendance for this game. I tried, but me and my fiance like to go to one game a year, and I think we're pretty much set on trying to go to the SEC game instead of going to Ball State. So, this game – good Lord, this should not be a game. It's I want to say this game should be over by the second quarter, if that. This game should be far. Sorry, I got to fix my hat. This game should be far from over very, very soon. I have sparingly watched some film from Ball State against Purdue last week. Well, if you don't know Purdue, not a very good football team either in the first year. They're Barry Odom era. And, who knows what Purdue will be in a couple of years. But right now, Purdue is not a very good team. And they walked in, played Ball State, and absolutely kicked the ever-loving crap out of them, 31-0. And they started that game from the start that way. Ball State, and I'll go ahead and get to some of my keys to the game here. Ball State should be an offensive awakening for Auburn on the opposite side of the spectrum of what we saw from last week. I think the Auburn pass offense is going to be big here versus that Ball State secondary. Purdue went out there and absolutely had a field day versus Ball State. And we've been talking about this Auburn offense all year long, talking about how good these wide receivers are and whatnot. Didn't really get to see any of them in display against Baylor. Got to see a couple of catches by a few. I think Horatio probably led the team in catches with 2. But if I'm looking at Purdue last week, and again, I'm not going to say Purdue is a good or bad. It's a good or bad team. I just know what they were last year. But they went in there and threw for 311 yards from their starting quarterback, 340 yards total, and 2 touchdowns as well. Auburn can do that and more in this game. And I think the game that we saw from Jackson Arnold, he should be able to have the adverse of that, which is absolutely balling out through the air. Baylor did not give Auburn the opportunity to throw the football, but Ball State can, surely just because of talent. And from what we've seen, at least, it should be an easy, breezy day for this Auburn offense. And I do believe that this Auburn wide receiver core is going to have themselves a day. I think Auburn could have a 100-yard receiver in this game. I think you're going to see multiple touchdowns coming out of this Auburn wide receiver room and coming out of this Auburn passing attack. So Ball State secondary is going to be preparing for that because I think Auburn can run the football very well in this game. I think Auburn will still be able to run the football and probably get a 100-yard rusher in this game as well. But I want to see the Auburn wide receiver core ball out. And I think it's going to be exactly that in this game. Another little matchup and key to watching this game is that front 7 versus Ball State quarterback. I'm going to hope Kyle Kelly is where I'm going to go with here. Dual threat quarterback last game, led Ball State in rushing yards as well as passing yards. 87 yards passing, 63 yards on the ground. He's a dual threat guy, and dual threat quarterbacks tend to give Auburn some issues. We saw it last year with a few guys that come to mind right away. Devin Dampierre gave Auburn issues. Diego Pavia, a list goes on and on and on. If you're a dual threat quarterback, you give Auburn's defense issues last year. So I do think the front seven does play a massive part here into making sure that, Ball State doesn't, I don't want to say scare Auburn, but definitely that Ball State doesn't get the chance to score until, the third stringers are in this game. That's one thing I will say about this game is I do think you're going to see the first instance of Deuce Knight in an Auburn uniform on the field taking snaps in a real game situation. I think Auburn is going to completely take over this game by the time the third quarter hits, and you're going to see Deuce Knight. You're going to see Alvin Henderson. You're going to see Omar Mapson. You're going to see Sam Turner. You're going to see all of those dudes that you've been waiting to see from this class of 2025. I think Auburn's going to run away with this game. But before I get there, I got to get to some players you got to watch here. And starting off with Ball State, I'll start with Ball State. Again, Cal Kelly, dual threat guy, going to give Auburn some issues. I already mentioned him. But Qua Ashley, the transfer out of Kansas State, hard-nosed running back, averaged 4.5 yards per carry against Purdue. He's going to get his fair share of carries in this game, 10 carries last game, despite the blowout. Auburn-wise, I got wide receivers listed here. I got Cam Coleman here for his first 100-yard game this season, and plenty more to come for Cam Coleman. I think he's going to have himself a game in this game, I guess, against Ball State this weekend. I think Cam Coleman's going to have himself a day. But another little breakout player, who had himself a day last year in the home opener? Perry freaking Thompson. Also, my players to watch list. I want to see Perry Thompson. I picked my players to watch last week, and all of them did pretty well, I will say. So I'm trying to manifest Perry Thompson having himself a day as well. I want to, if Jackson Arnold can go out there and throw for 300 yards, I think you might see one guy get 100 yards, another guy get 80 yards. I think it's going to go stagger down until you get to, the twins, Eric and Derek, getting themselves into the mix up as well. I want to see this. I want to see a blowout happen. And I think you're going to see it. So, and that's a kind of a short preview. It's because it should be. Auburn should be able to go out onto the field on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on ESPNU. Unless you're there, then you're watching it live. Auburn is a 43.5-point favorite in this game. Auburn should absolutely wipe the floor with Ball State. If Purdue is able to go out there and beat them 31-0, Auburn can go in there and beat them by even more than that. But again, what I want to talk about in this game is how much I want to see this passing game. Auburn can run the football. We know that. We saw what they did against Baylor. Baylor is not a bad football team. Baylor is a good football team who is one of those favorites to win the Big 12 this year. So let that sink in a little bit. Auburn should use this game to improve themselves going forward. Of course, next week you have South Alabama. After that, you got Oklahoma. You got Texas A&M. And you got Georgia waiting in the shadows over there. You cannot beat those three teams if you are one-dimensional. These next 2 weeks are the moments to get that second dimension, to get that third dimension, the fourth dimension. You're going to the movie theaters and you're getting poked in the back because something stung the main character. You got to get those dimensions if you want to win these football games you have up ahead. And Ball State and South Alabama are good stepping stones to get comfortable with those extra dimensions and throwing the football and making big plays through the air. Again, we've seen Auburn run the football well. We know they can. We need to still see them run the football well, but they need that second level. They need to be able to pass the ball, and I think Ball State is the perfect time to do that. So, my prediction, I have the Auburn Tigers winning this football game. Shocker, I know. 52-6. I think they cover that spread. I think Ball State gets some field goals late in the game. You got the backup quarterbacks in there, and maybe something happens. But I got 52-6. Just kind of throwing that out there. I wanted to put 52-3, but for some reason my number keys are not working. My 3 key in particular is not working. So I was like, okay, what the heck? 6. So 52-6 is my prediction for this game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you want to see this Auburn offense going into week 2 of the college football season? And what is your prediction for Auburn versus Ball State? So a quick little break. Outside this break, we're going to talk about our predictions for week 2 of the college football season. So stay tuned, and we're going to be right back.
Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program.
Of course, you get that on warreport.com. Of course, you can go to the shop and get your very own college loop merch. But of course, the best way to support the channel is not by buying the merch. It's by liking the videos. It's by commenting your prediction for Auburn versus Ball State. And of course, it's by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Getting so very close to that 1,000 subscriber number. Be super cool to reach that milestone. Getting so very close to reaching it as well. So, as we move on with the remainder of the show, we have a pretty decent week of college football. I mean, last week I did not have the best week in the world. Toledo let me down. Boise State let me down heavily in that game. And, of course, Clemson let me down as well. And there was another team in there that I'm blanking off my head. But, of course, I didn't get Florida State wrong. I came out there. It was a hate pick. I could not justify it with stats or analytics, but I picked Florida State, and they won that game. And I've been having fun all week talking some crap because I can right now, because it's that funny to do that. So what I got this week, got some rivalry games to talk about, but also, and I just realized you can't even see that last game because of the banner. So let me go and take that off. There we go. So with that being said, going to get right into these predictions. And I didn't have the time to make the little banner that comes up and tells you the game that I'm talking about. But, I had to get the show. Recorded. So starting off with the 11 a.m. kickoff on the CW network, the Baylor Bears traveling to Dallas, Texas, take on the SMU Mustangs. Baylor currently a 2.5-point underdog in this game. ESPN has SMU as a 66.9% chance of winning this game. But guess what? I have been backing how good Baylor is. I'm taking the Bears in this game. SMU went out there and they took down East Texas A&M last week. Auburn and Baylor took on each other. Baylor has that Power 4 experience. SMU, the ACC's been letting people down left and right. Outside of Florida State. Shout out Florida State yet again. But I'm going to take Baylor in this game. I think the Baylor Bears are good enough to get this done. And again, they're a top 25 team. Auburn's a top 25 team. AP voters disagree, but, I think Baylor is a good football team, deserves more respect. Just because they lost to Auburn does not mean they're a bad football team. Get that through your heads if you believe that way. But, yeah, I'm going to take Baylor in this game to get the upset over the SMU Mustangs. Now, up next, got a rivalry game up ahead. Iowa is traveling just a little ways down the road to Ames to take on the Iowa State Cyclones, a battle of the Big Ten versus the Big 12. Iowa State guys gotten it done back-to-back weeks, taking down Kansas State 24-21 in Dublin, and then last week taking down South Dakota 55-7. Iowa, offensive struggles, beating Albany 34-7. Iowa State is a favorite in this game by 3.5 points. And if the FPI monitor also has Iowa State as the favorite. I'm also going to be backing up Iowa State as the favorite here. Rocco Beck is a really good quarterback, underrated quarterback in the Big 12. So I'm going to rock with him in this game. I think Iowa State gets it done. And I don't know what the record is here in this rivalry, but I think Iowa State's won it back-to-back years, possibly, if I'm not mistaken. Or I could be very wrong about that. I can't say that I've always been a massive Iowa State rivalry watcher. But regardless, I'm going to take Iowa State in this game. Up next, got the Big Ten traveling to take on an ACC opponent, not in a basketball game. Illinois at Duke. Illinois, number 11 team in the country. Duke, though, ESPN FPI has them favored to win this game, but the sports books have the Illinois Fighting Illini in this one. Now, Duke went out and took care of business versus Elon 45-17, and Illinois also took care of business against Western Illinois 52-3. So take your pick here. I mean, neither one of those games is a good indicator of what a team is. I mean, both teams ran the ball really well, threw the ball really well against their, FCS opponents. I'm going to just rock with the ranked team here. I'm going to take Illinois to win this game. I think they're the more complete team just because, they've been here before. But I think Duke is a sneaky pick here. And, of course, looking down the road, I mean, if Duke wins this game, it might be a good season to be a Duke fan outside of basketball. Now, up next, got the SEC taking on another SEC opponent. Ole Miss traveling to Lexington, Kentucky. Take on the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, early on last week, Ole Miss looked like they were struggling versus Georgia State. That very quickly, wasn't happening anymore. Took down Georgia State 63-7. Kentucky, on the other hand, took on Toledo. And good God almighty, Kentucky looked just as bad as I predicted them to do so. Now, Kentucky's one of those teams that, they're a scary team when it comes to some teams to play them. They can get upsets. In this game right now, Ole Miss is a favorite both by ESPN FPI and by the Sportsbook. I'm going to take Ole Miss in this game. I'm going to die on the hill that I have built up from the ground that says Kentucky's not a good football team. They are not. They struggled. Offensively was bad against Toledo. And you walk in and you're going to have to try to find a way to defend Lane Kiffin's offense. I don't think it's going to bode up very well for Kentucky. So I'm taking Ole Miss in this game. Now, old school Big 12 rivalry, the Kansas Jayhawks making the travel across the state line to Columbia, Missouri, to take on the Missouri Wildcat. Dude, Lord, Missouri Tigers got another rivalry confused with each other. Missouri currently a 6.5-point favorite. And ESPN FBI tends to agree with that as well. Last week, Kansas took down Wagner 46-7, and then took down Fresno State 2 weeks ago 31-7. And Central Arkansas was beat down to death by Missouri 61-6. This game is going to be a fun one to watch. If you're looking for an unranked game that should have been game of the week, it is this game right here. This game is going to be fun. Two offenses that are really good. I'm going to, be a little bit of SEC homer here. I'm going to take the Missouri Tigers to win this game. I think that, I think the offense is just better. I think Bo Prabula brings another level to that team, but I think Jalen Daniels could have himself a day versus Missouri. So I'm going to take Missouri, but I'm watching out for Kansas in this one. Up next, West Virginia at Ohio. West Virginia is a favorite in this game. Not shockingly so. The shocking part is it's only by 3.5 points. Now, West Virginia was struggling early to score against Robert Morris and turned it around in the second half. Ohio, on the other hand, gave Rutgers a run for their money. I'm going to take West Virginia. Hopefully, I'm a West Virginia fan to a certain extent. I have family in West Virginia. My dad's from West Virginia. So, I kind of root for West Virginia a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit of a homer pick myself. I'm going to take West Virginia in this game. So, hopefully, not struggling or losing to Ohio, because if they do, Rich Rod will be right back on the bad side of the Mountaineer fan base. All right. Got a couple of interesting games up next. Or got actually the last four are pretty dang good, if you ask me. USF, best known for absolutely curb stomping Boise State into the ground on Thursday. Thursday, I think is when the game was. Or Friday. I forgot. Yeah, Thursday. It was Thursday. And then Florida gonna be taking on USF, beat the crap out of Long Island University. Now, this game is very interesting to me. Florida State is a big favorite, 17.5 points to win this game. But it just seems, who says that USF could not walk right in to Gainesville and the swamp and take down Florida? I'm going to say it, but good Lord, could you imagine what would happen if USF came into the swamp and beat Florida? I think Billy Napier wouldn't even be allowed. He'd be kicked out of the state. He would not be allowed to cross state line anymore and get back into the state of Florida. Byron Brown is a dog, so you got to watch out for him. They also have a wide receiver with the last name Nimrod, which is awesome. But yeah, I think I'm rocking with Florida in this game, but USF could surprise a lot of people this week. And this is not going to be like the first time they've ever done this to a Power 4 team, Power 5 team. They gave Alabama their money just a couple of years ago. So I'm going to take Florida, but USF definitely get an upset there. Arkansas State, for the first time ever, is playing against Arkansas, which is very surprising to me. Arkansas currently a 23.5 point favorite. Also, FBI, I'm taking Arkansas in this game very easily. Arkansas State struggled last week versus SEMO, which is southeastern Missouri. I'm taking Arkansas in this game. I decided to bring it up just because it's the first time these two are ever meeting. So I got to bring that up. It's a fun little fact. Up next, Vanderbilt is making the drive up to Blacksburg, Virginia for a night game with Enter Sandman versus Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a 1.5 point favorite. ESPN FBI also agrees they're a favorite. I am not high on Vanderbilt this year. We saw Virginia Tech play against South Carolina. I think South Carolina is a very good team this year. I think Virginia Tech is going to get the win against Vanderbilt. I think that they are a better overall team. They're more talented. Kyron Drones is an absolute menace. And I think even though he had 2 interceptions versus USC, I think you're going to see a big step-up game for him. Again, first home game of the season for Virginia Tech. Enter Sandman. Blood's going to be pumping. I'm taking Virginia Tech in this game. Now, up next, the game of the week. The number 15 Michigan Wolverines are traveling south, take on the number 18 Oklahoma Sooners in Norman, which why Oklahoma is ranked is beyond me. I don't know how they tricked the polls into voting for them up that high, but they did. Oklahoma is a 5.5 point favorite. FPI agrees with that as well. John Mateer looked good versus Illinois State, but again, there were some struggles, but also there were some struggles on Michigan's side too. I'm going to take the home team here. I'm going to take Oklahoma, but I mean, these two teams probably should not be ranked. They really should not, especially after watching them last week. No way should Oklahoma ever be not covering a spread versus Illinois State. And then in no way should Michigan ever be struggling to score against New Mexico. Probably very not good teams out of the two of these, but ranked game. I think Oklahoma gets the win here and gets it done against Michigan. So let's just in the conversation below. Again, leave your predictions for Auburn versus Ball State this weekend. Let me know what you're expecting to see from this Auburn offense. Are you wanting to see the passing game, enter that next level, or do you want to see Auburn continue to run the rock until, Oklahoma comes to the town, or actually reverse. Auburn goes to Norman, take on Oklahoma. Of course, Michigan-Oklahoma is a great game to watch, especially if you're into the film aspect of sports, because Oklahoma, this is going to be a big game to watch, preparing yourself for what Auburn should expect versus Oklahoma. So, let us think of everything I said in the comment section below. Leave your prediction for Auburn versus Boise State. Boise State again. Ball State. There we go. But, of course, I'm Dylan Larck on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck, DYLNLRCK. And, of course, you can find me around the College Loop Podcast, which is like, comment, subscribe. Again, leave your predictions for Auburn versus Ball State. There we go. And, of course, don't forget to check us out on everything on social media platform, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the worst, all of the College Loop. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to some College Loop Podcast yet again. And as always, War Eagle.